This daily market update has been brought to you by Daily Wealth Report. Trading involves risk of loss and may not be suitable for you. Past performance is no guarantee or reliable indication of future results. All advice and education content is of the nature of general information only and must not in any way be construed or relied upon as legal, financial or personal advice. Good morning traders and investors. It's Monday the 13th of August and we've seen some mixed market activity internationally with sellers really starting to take control on Friday. However, they weren't able to hold on through to the closing bell, and most of the leading international indices actually ended the day recovering through the tail end of the session. Starting with the UK FTSE 100, we can see here that it looks like it has closed up, but it actually had lost 4 points for the day, barely unchanged, closing at 5847. And again, this is just a reflection of the fact that it had opened lower and spent most of the day recovering, certainly throughout the tail end of the session, where it had popped up into break even within the last half hour, but then just closed down just a touch. It's not showing any real seller strength at the moment. That is really a reflection of weak buyer activity into the end of the week. Having a look at the German DAX, it was down 20 points or 0.3%, so a little bit more selling pressure in the German markets, closing at 6,944. This is showing a lot more of uncertainty from the buyers. The sellers aren't able to take control. If they were, we would have seen a solid red candle closing down towards the low of the day. So at this point in time, it's still in a weak buyer phase. And the French CAC 40, very similar picture there. It had lost 21 points or 0.6%, so that's a little bit more selling pressure there from the French market. It closed at 3435. As we have a look into the US markets, which had opened the day much lower, spent the rest of the day recovering. Most of the leading indices were able to pop back into break-even and did to a slightly positive close. The Dow Jones, as we have up on the screen in front of us at the moment, closed 42 points higher or 0.3% at 13,207. Again, it just really reflects that sideways action that we have seen throughout the entire week last week, and bouncing between the lows there of around 13,100 and the highs around 13,200. So a very tight range there on the Dow. So the blue chip leading stocks weren't really showing us much direction. As we take a look at the Nasdaq index reflecting technology stocks, it closed 2 points higher, so that was virtually unchanged at 3,020, and it too is in a very tight trading range. Whilst the S&P 500 index, representing a broader range of stocks there, had a slight upwards or bullish feel to it through the week, so the broader market was showing a little bit more activity. However, it only gained 3 points or 0.2%, closing at 1,405. So we have a major resistance level up there at 1420 that we're a little bit cautious of. The volatility index really dropped off quite heavily on Friday. As we can see here, the VIX was down 54 cents or 3.5%, closing at 1474, and that's the lowest point since late March earlier in the year, where there was a support base that had formed after the markets had been rallying for some time. So we are now down towards these very low levels. Whether we see any upwards shift in the VIX will all depend on whether selling pressure enters the broader market. And at this point in time, although we have weak buyer activity, we're not seeing any real commitment from the sellers at the moment. Little closer to home, and on the ASX 200, we had a solid downwards day. We can see here closed at 4283, and that's 25 points lower from the previous day's close. It is a short-term reversal pattern there, and that suggests that we are in a counter-trend movement. We had exactly the same activity on the previous Friday, showing us a bearish reversal point. However, because of the market activity internationally on Friday, the SPY is actually up slightly, showing us a gain of 18 points there over Friday's close, and that would suggest that the ASX 200 is likely to have a mildly higher start for the day. So whether we end up having exactly the same type of movement as we'd seen last week, where whilst the previous Friday it had a strong bearish reversal pattern, the buyers had pushed the markets further higher through the week. So this may be another reflection of the same type of activity. We'll need to see what happens on Monday to define whether that is a a return of the buyers, or whether that ends up being a further pullback, which one would expect down towards the 20 moving average, which is the shorter term average price for the index. The trend is accelerating, so we may find that we don't have too much of a pullback again, as we had seen back at this point here, and again the previous pullback. So that's our summary for Monday the 13th of August. We hope that gives you a little bit of insight into what's going on at the moment, and we look forward to giving you an update again tomorrow.